The neighbor's kid stole my package and tore it open. It was a limited edition figurine worth tens of thousands of dollars. They heartlessly tore it to pieces. I brought the broken parts to their door to demand compensation, but instead of paying a single cent, that neighbor lady, she threw a tantrum and scratched my face up. Then she twisted the story, accusing me of intimidating a minor. Later on, she brought her relatives to my office to protest with banners. It cost me my job. While we were arguing in the hallway, that brat intentionally stuck his foot out to trip me. I tumbled down the stairs and ended up paralyzed in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. When I opened my eyes again, I had traveled back to before the tragedy happened. This time, I had a flash of inspiration. I deliberately placed an antique blue and white porcelain vase, which I was holding for a friend, right outside my front door. I made sure to slap a giant fragile label on the box, along with a sign that said "Do not touch." But even then, I knew deep down that thieving grandmother and grandson living across the hall wouldn't be able to keep their hands off someone else's package. You guys like opening mystery boxes, right? Well, this time, I'm setting you up with a mystery box worth $800,000. A real premium price tag. Just as I finished moving the heavy wooden crate to my doorstep, the security door across the hall creaked open. That woman, Wang Kuihua, walked out dragging her spoiled rotten grandson, Jahao, swaggering out like they owned the place. "Oh, what kind of trash did you buy?" she sneered. "Blocking the whole hallway with a box this big? Don't people need space to walk? Honestly, you have absolutely zero manners. In my previous life, it was still over half a year until that little animal tripped me and left me disabled. But now, seeing those two sour, mean-spirited faces again, I felt Zushin Intenza wave of sickening nausea that I could barely hold it together. I always knew the old hag was cheap and greedy, but I never imagined she could be this shameless. She's so wicked that she'd actually encourage her grandson to break the law. Thank God I was reborn in time. Otherwise, for the rest of my life, I would have been stuck in a wheelchair. Those decades of absolute despair. This doesn't belong to me. It's a high-value item I'm holding for my boss. I'm moving it inside right now. This thing is incredibly delicate. If you guys damage it, you couldn't afford the compensation even if you sold your house. Keep your kid's hands to himself. Don't go touching anything. If she had any sense at all, she would have grabbed her grandson and headed downstairs right now. But I know she won't. She's notorious for being a shameless, coddling brat. The more I emphasize how expensive it is, the more I trigger her twisted jealousy and her curiosity. Please. Stop acting like some big shot. You're just a low-life wage slave. Who are you to know any big bosses? How much could a crappy wooden box even be worth? Who do you think you're scaring? Come on, sweetie. Let's ignore this pathetic loser. He's just jealous that our family actually has money. If your box gets broken, that's not my damn problem. Anything left out in the hallway is just trash nobody wants. I'll tear it open if I feel like it. If you dare lay a finger on it, you'll regret it. With that, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. I didn't shut the front door all the way behind me. I left it cracked just a tiny bit on purpose. Standing in the shadows of the foyer, I looked out through the 4K pinhole camera. I'd hidden in the doorframe. Wang Kuihua didn't leave at all. Instead, she crept up to the wooden box like a thief to get a better look. She gave Yahao a shove. She jerked her chin toward my place, gesturing for them to go. Then, lowering her voice, she arrogantly told them to go ahead. Wait until he goes inside to grab the cart, then pry that box open. Let's see what kind of good stuff is actually inside. If it's worth anything, we'll just swipe it and bring it back to our place. Anyway, if it's left out there, it's basically ownerless. Watching that grandmother and grandson on the screen, and their sneaky, underhanded behavior, I couldn't help but laugh. It wasn't because I was angry, it was because I was just too excited, because I knew exactly what was about to happen next. In my past life, it was at this exact moment that the package I'd left on the shoe rack by my door vanished into thin air. That was a limited edition, out-of-print figure, one I had spent over half a year waiting for, and had to pull every favor I had just to get my hands on. By the time I followed the trail of torn packaging and styrofoam bits to their door across the hall, Jiahao was already holding a sharp pair of scissors, hacking my precious treasure to pieces. And he was clapping and laughing as he did it. My heart ached so much it felt like it was bleeding. I forced down my rage and demanded that Wang Kuihua pay me back for the damage. That old hag didn't show an ounce of regret. Instead, she plopped herself down right on the hallway floor and started throwing a complete tantrum. She pointed a finger right in my face and started screaming insults. "It's just a few pieces of plastic, and you want me to pay $8,000? Are you dirt poor and losing your mind? Trying to scam honest people like us, huh? He's just a child. Why are you picking on a little kid like that?" She kept shrieking, then lunged at me like a rabid dog. Using those long, jagged fingernails of hers, she shredded my face, drawing real blood. And in the end, she actually played the victim. She ran to the police station and filed a report. She wailed and sobbed, claiming that I, a grown man, was out here bullying a minor and a helpless old woman, because the hallways in this old apartment complex had no security cameras. It all just became a messy, unresolved, she said situation. The police could only urge us to settle it peacefully, but her cruelty didn't stop there. To make absolutely sure she didn't have to pay me a single cent, she even called over a few thugs who looked just as rotten as she was. Those relatives of mine. They would show up at my office building every single day, waving around mourning banners and causing a scene. They slandered me, calling me a sick pervert who bullied the elderly and the weak. The internet trolls and my clients, not knowing the truth, ended up hating my guts. To calm down the bad press, my company cut all ties with me immediately. It destroyed my career overnight, leaving me with nothing. I was absolutely seething with hatred. Then, a month later, I ran into them in the hallway, and we got into a heated argument. Jiahao was hiding behind Wang Kuihua, and when I wasn't looking, he suddenly stuck his foot out and tripped me hard by the ankle. I didn't see it coming at all. I went tumbling down a steep flight of over a dozen stairs. I suffered a comminuted fracture of my cervical spine and severe spinal cord damage. When I finally woke up in the intensive care unit, the doctor coldly told me that I'd be bedridden for the rest of my life. I couldn't even turn over without someone to help me. As for Wang Kuihua and her family, they claimed it was just a kid playing around, insisting it wasn't on purpose. They danced right on the edge of the law, and in the end, they just paid 20,000 yuan and walked away scotangent-free. I hate them. I hate every single one of them in Wang Kuihua's family. It was their pure stupidity and greed that completely ruined my life. I thought I would just rot away in that wheelchair, consumed by nothing but blinding, endless rage. But then I opened my eyes, and I was somehow back in time, just before the tragedy happened. I had just finished signing for a package for a buddy, and the box was still sitting outside my door at that very moment. This time, I'm going to make sure we have some real fun together. I spent the whole night planning everything out. I even postponed my planned business trip. I pulled out my phone and carefully checked the device hidden in the gap of the Spring Festival couplet outside my door. High-definition 4K night vision security camera lens. The extremely fragile label stuck to the large wooden crate in the footage. National-level artwork. That bright red custom-made "Do Not Touch" warning label is clearly visible. The crate outside my door this time isn't filled with some cheap plastic collector's figure worth a few grand. It belongs to my buddy, a big-shot entrepreneur. He just won this at the Sotheby's spring auction for an astronomical price of 800,000 yuan. A genuine masterpiece by a world-class, critically acclaimed master. A blue and white porcelain vase. My buddy had to fly overseas today to negotiate a merger deal worth hundreds of millions. He just finished the handover for this set. And since he didn't have time to get it into a bank vault yet, he left it with me for safekeeping for a couple of days. Inside that wooden crate, not only is this incredibly delicate and priceless top-tier artwork stored away, but tucked into the velvet lining at the bottom, there's also the original 800,000 yuan transaction receipt from the auction house, as well as the full property insurance policy from the marine insurance company. That 800,000 is enough to buy a full-sized apartment in a great school district right here, in this city where our rundown old apartment building is located. If this were my past life, I absolutely wouldn't have dared to leave this thing outside the door. I would have been terrified even for a single second. My heart would have been pounding out of my chest. But I've been reborn. I know exactly how those two, the grandmother and grandson next door, operate. So, not only did I leave the crate in the most obvious spot on the shoe rack, I even went out of my way to take a utility knife and slice a shallow gap in the sealing tape of the wooden crate. I made it easy enough for that sticky-fingered little brat to pry it open effortlessly, of course, to make sure they couldn't try to pin it on me. I took every precaution necessary. My doorbell camera is linked directly to the cloud, recording and uploading footage 24 hours a day. And on the balcony, I've even got a device hovering and waiting. A micro-drone equipped with night vision and audio recording capabilities. The lens is ready. I had the camera locked dead on the trash collection area outside the apartment complex. Because the moment they make a move, this won't be just some petty neighbor dispute anymore. No, it'll be a grand larceny case involving massive financial damages. But I know, with how ignorant Wang Kuihua is, the second something goes wrong, what she'll be thinking won't be how to take responsibility. It'll be how to throw a tantrum and deny everything. And that times is the fatal weakness that will finally send her off to stitch uniforms behind bars for the next 10 years. She's just too greedy. She's dying to get her hands on things that don't belong to her. Right now, I didn't push my cart out to confront them face to face. Instead, I stood behind my door, watching the security feed quietly on my tablet. On screen, that little brat Jiahao didn't disappoint me at all. The moment he saw me close my door, he acted like a fly smelling rotten meat, immediately scurrying over to the large wooden crate. "Grandma, there's definitely something good in here. It's packed so securely, and it even says something about a master." Jiahao rubbed his filthy, grimy hands together in excitement, pulling a utility knife out of his pocket. And Wang Kuihua? She didn't even try to stop him. She actually stood at the hallway entrance, acting as a lookout, her eyes gleaming with greed. "Watch what you're doing, you klutz. Hurry up and see what it is. If it's worthless, just dump it here. But if it's something valuable, we'll sneak it back into our place without anyone knowing. Besides, there's no camera in the hallway anyway. What kind of evidence could a broke loser like him possibly have?" I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh hearing that. That old hag. She still thinks she's getting a free handout. Jiahao swung the utility knife, and with a sharp times rip, he sliced right through the thick packing tape. He pried the lid of the wooden crate open with all his might. The first thing that caught my eye was tucked inside the high-end shock-absorbent foam, an incredibly exquisite, dark red. Gift box. Jahao didn't know the first thing about culture or appreciation. Like he was tearing apart a cheap toy, he ripped the foam open roughly and yanked the box out with a jerk. What a piece of junk box, he grumbled. Heavy as hell. The moment he opened the lid, even through the screen, I could see the soft, warm glow radiating from that blue and white porcelain. The masterful craftsmanship, the impossibly thin and translucent body, every detail screamed its $800,000 price tag. But in the eyes of a brat like Jahao, who lacked any sense of upbringing, this was just a glass bottle with some peaches painted on it. What is this trash? I thought it was the latest model toy. What a waste of time. Not only did he fail to put the vase back where it belonged, but instead, fueled by the spite of not getting the toy he wanted, he grabbed that $800,000 antique with one hand, and like he was bowling, he hurled it with all his might. Against the hard tile floor of the hallway, a piercing, thunderous crashing sound exploded through the hallway, the echoes bouncing off the walls of the floor. That treasure, viewed as a priceless gem by countless collectors, and the result of years of an artisan's painstaking work, a national-level masterpiece, was instantly reduced to a pile of shattered fragments. Wang Kuihua was startled by the sudden, deafening crash and scrambled out from the doorway. "Oh, my little prince! What on earth did you break? Making such a racket? Are you trying to kill me?" You scared the life out of me. I thought you broke some expensive appliance. Turns out it's just a broken old porcelain pot. Let it be broken, who cares? That piece of junk was worth 50 bucks at most. Let's go. Let's hurry home. Just pretend none of this ever happened. Just as Wang Kuihua was pulling Jiahao along and getting ready to sneak back into the house, the corner of her eye suddenly caught a glimpse of a document that had fallen to the ground along with the jar. It was a few sheets of paper with an incredibly fancy finish. Wang Kuihua always loved to take advantage of small things. She wouldn't even pass up scrap cardboard left by others in the hallway. She picked up those papers on a whim, wanting to see if the paper quality was any good, to see if it was worth saving to sell as scrap. The first thing she looked at was that receipt from Sotheby's auction house. At first, she gave it a careless glance, but then she completely froze in her tracks. From behind the screen, I could clearly see her eyes widen in shock, like she'd seen a ghost in broad daylight. She stared intensely at the numbers at the bottom of the page. 800,000. Although Wang Kuihua wasn't well educated, she had an incredibly keen nose for money. She definitely knew exactly what this long string of numbers represented. And on the very next page, the full property insurance policy from Ocean Insurance Company, it was written in bold, black print, stating clearly the sky-high insured value of this antique piece. On the surveillance footage, all the color in Wang Kuihua's face drained away in an instant. Her whole body started to tremble violently, as if she had been electrocuted. 800,000 for a piece of junk? How is that possible? That's absolutely impossible. Grandma, this jar really wasn't sturdy. It shattered the moment I dropped it. It's not fun, let's go. I want to go back and watch my tablet. Shut your mouth, you little jinx. With a heavy, swift hand, Wang Kuihua slapped Jiahao hard across the face. I smacked him so hard he spun halfway around on the spot. It was so agonizing that he burst into tears. Wang Kuihua is genuinely panicking now. It's the kind of fear that stems from the depths of one's soul. $800,000. That's every penny of his life savings sitting in the bank. Add in the wages his son has been earning by working his fingers to the bone, day in and day out. Even if they threw every cent into it, and even sold this old rundown apartment they're living in right now, it might barely be enough to cover the damages. In a state of absolute terror, his first instinct wasn't to knock on my door and apologize, nor was it to take responsibility. It was to run away. I can't admit it. Absolutely not. I can't let on. There's no security camera in the hallway, right? That's it. No cameras. No one saw that it was us who smashed it. He clearly forgot. We're living in a highly digitized smart tech era. Who doesn't have a smart doorbell camera on their door these days? Driven by overwhelming panic and sheer greed, Wang Kuihua made a decision. That would be enough to send his entire family straight to hell. Destroy the evidence. That's it. Dead men tell no tales, get rid of the proof. As long as they can't find the items, they'll have no way to pin this on us. Like a stray cat that just had its tail stepped on, he scrambled back into his house like a madman. He yanked out an incredibly thick, heavy-duty black industrial trash bag. He didn't even care about the razor-sharp porcelain shards on the floor. He used his bare hands to scoop up those priceless fragments, stuffing them frantically into the trash bag, handful after handful. The sharp shards sliced open his fingers, and blood dripped onto the floor, but he didn't even notice. His mind was obsessed with one thought: get rid of it all, fast. Hurry up, stop crying and help me pick this up. Do you want your father to beat you to death? The two of them, grandparent and grandchild, scurried like rats stealing grain, gathering up all the fragments on the floor, that lethal certificate of authenticity, and even the remains of the wooden crate and the foam padding. She shoved everything into a black trash bag without a second thought. To make sure no one would suspect a thing, Wang Kuihua not only cleaned up the crime scene, she even ran home to grab a damp rag. Kneeling on the floor, she scrubbed away every trace of blood and dust until it was spotless. She didn't leave a single speck of powder behind. Once that was done, she grabbed that black trash bag filled with $800,000 worth of shards. She poked her head out, acting all shifty and paranoid. After making sure the hallway was empty, she dragged Jiahao along, not even daring to take the elevator. They bolted down the stairs as fast as they could. Watching her guilty, rat-like back on the security feed, I felt a cold, sharp smirk pull at the corners of my mouth. She clutched the bag, braving the light drizzle that had just started falling outside, and sprinted 2 kilometers. The entire process of her tossing the bag of shards into the construction waste pile outside the complex was captured perfectly by the miniature drone I had strategically placed on my balcony beforehand. Keep running, you old hag. You think you're so clever, destroying the evidence, thinking you can just kick back and relax? The show has only just begun. Watching Wang Kuei-hua slink downstairs like a thief on the monitor, I didn't rush out to intercept her, nor was I stupid enough to go digging through the trash bin. Confronting her right now would only tip her off. If I did, that shameless old woman would probably turn it around on me, claiming I broke the items myself just to frame her. To catch a thief, you need the goods. I need to make this evidence airtight. I took a relaxed sip of the coffee on my desk, and then, calm and collected, I took the footage from the security camera in my door's peephole, along with the full recording from the balcony drone, bundled them up, and backed them all up to 3 separate encrypted cloud drives. After confirming that all the evidence was completely secure, I picked up my phone and dialed 911. Hello? Hello? 911? I need to report a crime. Right outside my front door, there's been a pretty serious case of theft and property damage. The people involved are currently trying to move the stolen items. Yes. The total value of the property involved is $800,000. Please send officers to the scene as soon as possible. After hanging up the emergency line, I immediately dialed the number for the senior claims manager at Ocean Insurance that my buddy had given me. Manager Lee? The blue and white porcelain vase I was holding for someone, it's been ruined. Yeah. It didn't happen while it was in my possession. Someone left it outside my door and my neighbor maliciously smashed it to pieces. And the best part is, to avoid paying for the damages, they tossed the insurance policy and the certificate of authenticity from your firm straight into a pile of construction debris outside the complex. I have the whole thing captured on high-definition surveillance. The voice on the other end, which had been sounding pretty lazy just a second ago, suddenly jumped up an octave. It even carried a hint of disbelief and genuine excitement. For an insurance company, an $800,000 claim is definitely not pocket change. But if the nature of the case is clear-cut, and they can pin it down firmly on the malicious party for subrogation, then their legal department is going to show exactly what real corporate power looks like. Mr. Lin, please secure the scene. Don't touch a single thing. Our chief attorney and the claims adjuster will be there immediately. Within 20 minutes, not even half an hour, the piercing sound of sirens shattered the peace of the neighborhood. 2 police cars with flashing red and blue lights, along with a black Mercedes S-Class carrying the insurance company's elite legal team, pulled up to our building almost at the exact same time, causing all the seniors in the neighborhood to lean out their windows and start gossiping. I know. The nightmare for Wang Kuei-hua and her family had officially begun. It started with a heavy, aggressive pounding on their door. The security door across the hall from me was cracked open just a sliver. Wang Kuei-hua was still holding a rice bowl in her hand, sticking her head out and acting all startled. Oh my, officer, what's going on here? Did some major crime happen? Why are you coming after a poor widow and her child like this? When the police officer sternly asked her if she had touched the large wooden crate that her neighbor me had placed in the hallway just half an hour ago, Wang Kuei-hua's acting reached its absolute peak. What wooden crate? What vase? I've never even seen such a thing. Officer, you absolutely cannot listen to the lies that guy Lin is spreading. My son, Yihao, has been inside watching cartoons all afternoon. He hasn't taken a single step out of this apartment. That guy is just a miserable, broke loser. He's always headed out for my Jihao. He's just trying to frame us honest folk and squeeze us for money. How are we supposed to live like this? Jiahao was hiding behind his mother's fat, bulky frame, clutching a toy gun in his hand, making faces at me, wearing that same arrogant look that said, "What are you going to do about it?" If I hadn't saved the surveillance footage in my past life, I'd probably be so furious at her flawless, shameless manipulation that I'd be coughing up blood right now. And in the end, the police would have likely just written this off as a typical, he said. She said neighborhood dispute. But this time, I stood right by my doorway, not arguing, not making a scene. I just stared at her performance with the cold, dead eyes of someone looking at a corpse. I just watched her put on her little show. Then, with a slight smile, I handed the tablet to the lead officer. Officer, I don't want to hear any more of her nonsense. This is the footage from my doorbell camera. Please, take a look for yourself. The video started playing. The resolution was crystal clear. You could even see every bit of flab on Jiahao's face, along with that smug, twisted grin of his. The footage showed exactly how Jiahao took a utility knife and sliced open the wooden crate, and how he ripped the police tape off the box so violently. With that same malicious smirk, he slammed the vase onto the tile floor, shattering it into a million pieces. Moments ago, Wang Kuei-hua was still screaming, throwing a tantrum in the hallway like she owned the place. But now, her voice just died in her throat. Her eyes were glued to that screen, and her face went ghostly pale. This doesn't prove anything. The kid didn't know any better. So what if he broke some cheap glass jar? What's the big deal? It's his own fault for leaving it out. Fine, I'll pay him $100. That should more than cover it. Miss Wang, I think you might have a serious misunderstanding about how the world actually works. Standing behind the police officers, a man in a sharp suit, the insurance company's chief legal counsel, finally stepped forward. He adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, clutching a thick stack of documents. His gaze was sharp, like a blade pulled from its sheath. I am Hai Yang, the lead legal counsel for the insurance company's high-profile accounts. Based on the auction house records we have in our possession and the official certification from professional appraisers, that piece of porcelain, your family destroyed, was a masterpiece by an intangible cultural heritage artisan. The value is extremely high. $800,000. $800,000? Are you out here robbing people? This is a setup. You're all in on this. I don't believe you. Even if it is worth $800,000, the brat was the one who smashed it. Go ahead and arrest him if you want. He isn't even 14 yet. He can't go to jail. Wang Kuihua was officially losing her mind. When faced with massive profits, he even tried to push his own young grandson out to take the fall. I let out a cold laugh. Miss Wang, minors might not have to bear criminal responsibility, but how about you take a look at this instead? The footage playing on the screen was exactly Miss Wang Kuihua trying to cover up her crimes. She was stuffing broken debris all over the floor into black trash bags, and braving a light drizzle, she ran out of the apartment complex to a construction waste site 2 kilometers away to dump them. The entire process, even her wiping away the traces in the hallway, was all captured perfectly clearly. Miss Wang, you're really quite skilled at covering up your tracks, aren't you? Too bad, I even recorded exactly which trash bin you threw them in. And on another note, the police just found everything you discarded in that exact pile of trash. Legally speaking, a minor breaking expensive items might indeed be considered a civil dispute, meaning you, as the legal guardian, would have to shoulder that $800,000 compensation. But because you actively hid and disposed of the evidence in an attempt to escape that $800,000 debt, hoping there would be no proof left, this behavior has now officially escalated into the crime of intentional destruction of property, as well as the crime of concealing the proceeds of a crime. With an amount totaling $800,000, it qualifies as an exceptionally large sum under criminal law. What's waiting for you is a prison sentence starting at 3 years, up to a maximum of 10 years. This isn't just about a kid being mischievous anymore. As an adult, this is a serious, full-blown criminal offense. Upon hearing the words, serious criminal offense, Wang Kuihua's mental defenses completely shattered in an instant. With a loud thud, she dropped to her knees, crashing hard against the unforgiving tile floor. Mr. Lin. Boss Lin. Master Lin, I was wrong, please. I was blind. I truly had dog eyes and couldn't see. He lunged at me like a madman trying to grab my legs. But the police held him back just in time. All he could do was sprawl on the ground. His face was a disgusting mess of snot and tears. I'll go get it back. I'll pay. I'll sell everything I own. I'll even sell my scrap metal to pay you back. Just tell them it was all a misunderstanding, please. I'm an old person with brittle bones. I can't go to jail. Ji Hao watched as his grandmother, who always acted like the queen of the house, was now groveling on the floor like a dog. Finally realizing they were in deep trouble, he burst into a terrified wailing cry. A pungent yellowish liquid started trickling down his pant leg, forming a puddle. Didn't you always say he's just a child? Well, now please take that same sentence and go explain it to the judge yourself. Everything that followed went exactly according to the script I'd planned. The police cuffed Wang Kuihua on the spot for her criminal offenses and shoved her into the patrol car. After the insurance company finished their rigorous site inspection and evidence collection, they immediately wired the $800,000 settlement into my buddy's account. Soon after, the insurance company's massive, elite legal team bared their sharpest fangs. They launched a relentless subrogation lawsuit against Wang Kuihua's family. With a mountain of ironclad evidence against them, Wang Kuihua's son, who had been working in another city, spent all night on a budget train rushing back. When he found out that his mother was facing up to 10 years in prison and that the insurance company had already filed for asset preservation with the court, forcibly freezing all their properties, the man, over 30 years old, stood in the police station hallway. He slapped his own mother fiercely. More than a dozen loud, resounding slaps. He cursed her for being a jinx, but beating her to death wouldn't solve a thing. In order to secure a letter of forgiveness from me, and to keep Wang Kuihua from truly spending 10 years behind bars, and even more so, to prevent Jia Hao's permanent record from being forever tarnished by having an immediate family member with a serious criminal record, Wang Kuihua's son finally completely folded. Under the intense pressure from the insurance company's lawyer, his family was forced to scrape every penny together, selling the property they were once so proud of. They had to dump it for a dirt cheap price, nearly half of its actual market value. The money from the sale was just enough to fill that massive $800,000 hole, along with the exorbitant breach of contract fees and the other side's legal costs. In just one short month, their entire family went bankrupt overnight. They were kicked out of their big city apartment and saddled with a mountain of toxic debt owed to their relatives. On the day they moved out, a light, drizzling rain was falling. The weather was bone-chillingly cold. I stood on my balcony, holding a steaming cup of black coffee, watching coldly as Wang Kuihua and her family down below carried a few cheap plastic woven bags. They couldn't even afford a moving company. They had to push a borrowed tricycle through the rain. Jiahao no longer had that air of disgusting entitlement he used to have. Like a frightened, sickly cat, he cowered behind his father. And Wang Chuihua seemed to have aged over 10 years in a single night. Looking like a total stray dog with nowhere to go, she kept looking back every few steps, her eyes filled with nothing but regret and despair. I pulled my gaze away, cracked my neck, and felt the place where I had been stabbed in my past life. My spine, which is perfectly intact at this very moment. I let out a long, deep sigh of relief. In this life, I haven't dirtied my own hands. I didn't even have to exchange a single heated argument with them. Yet, I've achieved an absolute and total victory. I finally got some sweet, sweet revenge. When you're dealing with scumbags like these, getting angry or trying to reason with them is completely useless. Letting their own ignorant greed crash head-on into the cold, hard reality of the law, that is the most lethal blow of all. It's almost over.